So yeah, thanks for joining us all today to continue talking through the program manuals for the new CEJA and FEJA grantees that are being onboarded now. Um, Today we will be covering program manual chapters 4 and 5 on outreach and recruitment and intake and application. And our first presenter for today is Grant Manager Connor Bertrand. So I will turn it over to him.
Thank you, Nate. So good morning, everybody. Um, Welcome to the second part of our program manual orientation. Like we've mentioned before, the 2026 CEJA manual comprises 12 sections, which we're going to cover throughout these orientation sessions. This is the second of the 4 planned sessions that we've got. So the target audience for this program is program administrators and respective staff that are accountable for implementing the CEJA Illinois Clean Jobs Workforce Network program, so Workforce Hubs, the Energy Transition Navigator program, or the FEJA Multicultural or the FEJA Solar Pipeline programs. So titles that may be included in this are the program administrators, outreach staff, recruitment staff, barrier reduction staff, any instructional or transitional staff, and then your data entry staff. So thanks for taking time to hop on today, and we'll go ahead and get into this. Next slide, please. So this first section is just going to be our welcome and introduction. So I am Connor Bertrand. I am our CEJA grant manager for the northern region. So for the hubs and transition navigators, if you're in the northern region of the state, I will be your grant manager. And then I'm also the FEJA solar pipeline manager. And then I'll turn it over to Sarah. She can introduce herself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sarah Graham. I am the CEJA grant manager for the central and southern regions, and I am the grant manager for FEJA Multicultural Jobs Program.
Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Cerruti. I'm the CEJA Southern Regional Administrator for the Workforce Hub programs and the Navigator programs and the Returning Residents programs. Pass this over to, well, I think Nate's already introduced himself.
Hey, all,
Maybe.
Nate Keener, CEJA Central Regional Administrator. Good to see everybody again. And I don't think Larry's on, but I think Diana is. If I don't know if she wants to introduce herself again.
All right, getting off mute. Good morning, everybody. I'm Diana Fuller. I am the CEJA Division Manager. Thank you for joining us.
All right. Thanks, team, for everybody introducing themselves. And then I think we can go to the next slide. So some Zoom basics, which I'm sure by now everybody is relatively familiar with these, but just another reminder of try to keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. There will be opportunities where we'll ask people to unmute and ask questions or share your opinions on something. If you have any questions during the presentation, put it in the chat or raise your hand through the React at the bottom of Zoom. And then I think that should be all that we need to cover for that. And then, as with our previous sessions, all of these sessions will be recorded and made available for review in the Workforce Hub's partner guide. It can take a couple of days, so at least allow 3 to 5 business days for that to be posted after the recording. And then a link will be dropped in chat, which I can do that right now so that it's there. There's that for everybody. And I think that should be all for the Zoom basics. We can go to the next slide. So in the chat, please share your name, your organization, and what your role on the grant will be. So I'll give everybody a moment to do that. All right, I see lots of names and roles and organizations popping up in the chat, so that's great. I think we can go ahead and hop to the next slide. So the second part here is our CEJA Workforce Programs orientation regarding our CEJA Workforce Programs. So guidance for the Workforce Hubs programs are provided in the Workforce Hubs program manual. If you've not yet done so, please access the available chapters on Illinois WorkNet in your partner guide. A link to the currently published chapters is available for you in the chat. Please note that guidance for the Workforce Hubs program as well as the correlating policies will continue to be formalized and made available to grantees. Please expect a Q1 release of relevant chapters. In addition, CEJA reserves the right to modify or update guidance at any time. And then the CEJA manuals are still in development and will be released later in Q1. So for now, please just use the Workforce Hubs program manual as a guide. The information we're covering today applies to all 4 programs. The energy transition navigators may use their current manual, and updates will be coming later in the year for those. Next slide, please. So then our course objectives for today. So this will be covering chapters 4 and 5. So by the end of the training today, you'll all be able to fulfill the requirements for outreach, recruitment, and intake, explain the importance of equitable outreach, recruitment, and describe strategies to meet recruitment goals, incorporate core equity values into your outreach and intake process, assist potential participants as they navigate the pre-screen assessment and program application. You'll be able to assess potential participants for barrier reduction services using the service needs assessment. You can evaluate potential participant career readiness using the career assessment, determine and communicate enrollment decisions, and you'll be able to accurately enter potential participant data into the CEJA reporting system based on status. Next slide, please. So just an open question for everybody, so you can drop a response in chat. What do you hope to get out of this session today? So I'll give everybody a moment to think about that and their answers in chat. I see people saying continuing to learn about the CEJA guidelines, which is definitely something that we'll be covering today. Barrier reduction assessment and required reporting systems, guidance on a successful launch to the hub, refresher on old protocols and updates on new process, clarity on reporting. Hope to learn more about the hands-on parts of the program. Great, so it looks like everybody's got something they're looking for out of this call, which is great. I think we can go to the next slide. So our section 2 here will cover outreach and recruitment. Next slide, please. Thank you. Chapter 4, outreach and recruitment. So by the end of this section, you'll be able to describe the role of outreach and recruitment and the types of participant and contact status. You'll be able to leverage outreach and recruitment resources and tools. You'll be able to track your outreach and recruitment efforts, and you'll be able to integrate and uphold the 6 core equity values. So then on the screen, we have a graphic showing the CEJA Workforce Program's life cycle. So as you can see, there's the outreach and recruitment, application intake, then into barrier reduction services, into training, into the complete transition and follow-up. So the first 2 are really where the navigators will be focused, as we've circled on that box. And so that's where we're talking about when we mentioned the roles of how the navigators and the hubs work together. This is kind of what we're talking about, where the navigators will really handle those first 2 of outreach and recruitment and, getting good applicants and figuring out what people are a good fit for through the assessments. And then from there, they'll go to the hubs who take over with the barrier reduction services. That's not to say that the hubs and won't do any outreach, but that's the primary role of the navigators, is to get people pushed to those other steps. Next slide, please. Outreach, recruitment, and goals. So the outreach and recruitment efforts have 3 goals for this program. So the first is to raise awareness of the program. The second is to build trust with community members, organizations, and potential participants. And the third is to recruit community members to the program. So these can be accomplished through several methods that are going to be discussed later in this section. It is important for everyone on the call to remember that these efforts will likely be the first time that a community member or a potential participant will be learning of the program. Um, so as a result, while recruitment is the goal, there is significant value just in raising awareness and building trust with your community. Reputations are essential to the program, so it is important to keep these efforts human-centered and equity-focused, not just laser-focused on recruitment and getting people, just only focused on recruiting. So please keep that in mind. Outreach and recruitment coordination. So now we'll talk about who will be conducting these efforts on the ground. I had kind of mentioned before how these programs are going to bounce off of one another and work together. So outreach and recruitment efforts for the FEJA and CEJA workforce programs is a coordinated effort. As we discussed in the last section, there's a lot of program partners, and one of those partners is the Energy Transition Navigator program. So the program was designed to help increase participation in the CEJA and FEJA training programs. So grantees are required to coordinate with the local Energy Transition Navigator on outreach and recruitment efforts to reduce duplication of services and to accept referrals from those ET navigators. Coordination of these efforts can be outlined in a marketing plan or an outreach plan. So grantees should really think about how you will deliver outreach and recruitment, set goals for your outreach efforts, track the progress, and dedicate resources and staff. Including the ET navigators in these conversations can be really beneficial to ensure there's not an overlap of efforts, and so that there can be coordination of staff to help widen the reach of both of your teams. Workforce programs should work with navigators to develop and sign MOUs with clear goals and clear assigned responsibilities. Next slide, please. So, equity, values, and outreach and recruitment. So, sorry, my notes for popping up for a second. As we discussed a moment ago, outreach and recruitment efforts will be the first time that many community members and potential participants will get to know this program and possibly just even getting to know your organization. So these interactions will set the stage for participant experiences. So there must be an intentional effort to pull these 6 core values into outreach and recruitment efforts. So there's a couple of different ways your team can do this. So one is training your staff specifically on implicit bias and cultural sensitivity. This should be done before outreach and recruitment takes place. By acknowledging and understanding implicit bias, this can widen your staff's perspectives and guard against implicit bias. Cultural sensitivity training can help staff build trust in the community and provide an insight for staff into the cultural norms of target populations if they have an alternate background or an alternate lived experience. Another way your team can do this is outreach tools should reflect your target population and have diverse representation. So ensure that outreach materials are representative demographically of the target populations. You want people to feel welcomed and included. It provides your target population an opportunity to see themselves in this program before joining. It is also important to remember that depending on your target population, outreach materials should be developed in multiple languages. This is to help ensure that language is not a barrier to your participant. Once you have participants, it is also a good idea to feature actual participant images and stories. So showing photos of participants on the work sites or gaining new skills or telling stories on your social media and celebrating those people when they join an apprenticeship or gain employment. And then outreach plans should feature tools and methods that will appeal to your target populations. So in a moment, we will discuss marketing plans. When developing this or any other communications plan, it is essential to think from the perspective of your target population. Where might they go on a regular basis? What are their needs? What are their interests? If they are walking past a flyer or scrolling online, what program elements might catch their eye? And then finally, incorporate community and participant feedback. When conducting outreach or distributing materials, there may be valuable feedback provided by members of your target population. They might tell you about important locations or events. They may tell you what information or elements were more appealing or what was not appealing. Or they can tell you what you should really promote or what should be featured more prominently on those materials. Um, so really, whenever their feedback is given, it should be accepted and incorporated whenever possible. Okay, target populations. This program was designed to serve all Illinoisans with a special focus on those who have historically been excluded from the clean energy industry. These populations include persons residing in equity investment eligible communities, low income persons, persons who identify as Black, Indigenous, and people of color, formerly incarcerated persons, persons who are or were in the child welfare system, displaced energy workers and their dependents, women, LGBTQ+, transgender or gender nonconforming persons, persons with disabilities, or individuals who face employment barriers such as low educational attainment, low levels of literacy, language barriers, etc. Next slide, please. And then in session one, we had talked about the CEJA grantee map when discussing on how to identify partners. But this map that's featured in this slide can be used to help identify equity eligible communities where your organizations can focus your outreach and recruitment efforts. The link for this map will be placed in the chat shortly. On this map, you can filter by environmental justice communities, restore, reinvest, renew, or R3 communities. So I will grab that link and put that in just a moment. And then I think it's Nate's turn, so I'll hand it off to you, Nate.
Thanks, Connor. My computer is not responding here. Can y'all hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Hard time getting the computer to respond here. Okay, thanks, Connor. I will take it over from here to talk about, to keep building out the conversation about outreach and recruitment. So when developing outreach and recruitment materials or conducting outreach and recruitment efforts, there are several requirements that must be met to ensure that potential participants are able to make an informed choice and fully understand program values. These include program benefits, and so grantees should ensure that they discuss barrier reduction services, transition services, and how they'll be offered support during and after the program. Um, should talk about curriculum, so what credentials, certificates will be earned, what will they learn in the courses, work-based, worksite learning. Talk about stipends, so programs may offer a $13 per hour per instruction hour stipend and the policy surrounding earning that stipend. And just to note, those are optional on the CEJA side. Need to talk about program requirements. So what are the hours per week and the total? When do classes begin? Attendance and post-assessment requirements. And then want to reflect the 6 core equity values. So all materials and interactions need to exemplify the 6 core equity values that were outlined in Chapter 2 and discussed during orientation session 1. And finally, eligibility requirements must be clear and included in outreach and recruitment materials and efforts. All right, next slide. Right. So when it comes to eligibility, different CEJA and FEJA workforce programs have slightly different eligibility requirements, so be sure to consult your respective program manual. Um, Generally, eligibility has common elements, and so we're talking about equity investment eligible persons, persons enrolled, which are defined as persons enrolled in the foster care system, formerly incarcerated persons, primary residents in an equity investment eligible community, um, by which we mean residing in environmental justice and or an R3 community. Individuals who face barriers to employment, such as low educational attainment, English language learners, and low levels of literacy. Displaced energy workers, and individuals from low-income households. And like I said, each program has slightly different eligibility, so make sure that you're consulting your respective program manual for those eligibility requirements. Next slide. There are several outreach and recruitment tools that have been developed for grantees to utilize or that grantees are required to utilize as part of their outreach effort. The first tool is a marketing plan. This is a templated document available on the partner guide designed to help grantees outline their outreach goals, communication channels, timeline, resources, and staff allocation, and track progress. Next slide, please. Next is the flyer. Grantees can add their contact information and logo to the flyer. Grantees can utilize pre-approved materials without additional approval, but the only edits that should be made to those pre-approved materials is to input information specific to your program in the spaces provided. Grantees are allowed to customize their own materials, but all such materials must be approved by your grant manager prior to distribution. Please allow plenty of time, up to a week or more, for turnaround of approval of customized materials. Next slide, please. Next is the poster, which provides general information regarding the FEJA and CEJA workforce programs. You can add your organization's contact information and website along with a QR code on that document. Grantees can, again, utilize the pre-approved poster without additional approval, and again, making sure the only edits you're making to those pre-approved documents are to input the information specific to your program in the spaces provided. And again, grantees are allowed to customize your own materials, but should be approved by your grant manager prior to distribution. So please allow plenty of time, up to a week or more, for turnaround of approval of customized materials. And grantees can find these on the partner guide. Last is the information sheet. I'm sorry, next slide, please. Last is the information sheet. Information sheets must be provided to applicants during the application process and made available on the program's website. Information sheets must describe the program design, eligibility requirements, and selection criteria. A template has been made available in the respective program partner guides. Next slide, please. All programs should have a landing page on their organization website that's dedicated to their respective FEJA and or CEJA workforce program. This website should outline program goals, requirements, application processes, contain downloadable information sheets, and other essential information. This landing page link should be used in social media posts and in materials to provide easy access to program information. Websites are one of the first, if not the first place, that potential participants will seek information about your organization's program. Next slide, please. We just talked about several templates that offer organizations the ability to update the contact information or add a QR code on those pre-approved materials. All of those templates were developed in an online graphic design website called Canva. To edit these documents, your team will need to access these files through Canva. Then your team will be able to download, print, and distribute them. Canva does require you to set up an account, but to edit these documents, your team will only need a free Canva account. This will allow for one user. Assign this responsibility to somebody on your team who manages marketing and outreach for the program. And just let us know if you have any difficulty accessing Canva. If you're having trouble accessing Canva free, we can address this during a TA Tuesday office hours call and get you the files you need or help you figure out how to update them in some other way. Next slide, please. To access these templates on Canva, you can go to the CEJA material templates document on the partner guide. The link for this document is being shared in the chat, and I'm putting that there right now. As shown on the screen, this provides a direct link into each template, many of which are offered in both English and Spanish. When you click on one of the links, you'll be brought to the Canva site where there will be a preview of the template you selected. If you want to edit that template, you'll select the button at the bottom titled Use Template for New Design. The system will then ask you either to log into an existing account or set up a new account. You'll select how you want to sign in through your Google or Facebook account, an email, or an alternate way, then follow the system prompts to log in or sign up. If you're signing up for the first time, make sure you're selecting a free Canva account. Next slide, please. And one more. One more. There we go. And now, just want to get folks involved in the conversation here using the chat. Please answer the question on the screen. What have you found are the most effective outreach strategies for your organization and region? And maybe you've never done this work before, so you don't yet know the answer to this question, and that's okay. But for folks who do have experience, tell us what you have found to be the most successful. And feel free to type in the chat or come off mute and let us know what are the most successful outreach strategies for your organization. Social media posters and information sharing. Yep. Attending outreach events, vending at events, physical engagement, outreach events and listening sessions, CBO partnerships, word of mouth. Yep. News release, former students, another plug for word of mouth, another word of mouth. Yep. Cool. Awesome. Next slide, please. So we touched on a bunch of these. It sounds like a lot of folks are already doing a lot of what's on the screen here. So I'll try to touch on some of the ones that we didn't touch on there. Numerous methods that can be used to recruit participants. Some are more successful than others, and some may be more successful in some regions than others. Essential to think about the members of your team responsible for the activities. Ensure that the team represents the target population you're attempting to recruit. This can be by race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, former incarceration status, former foster care status, etc. This is the first interaction most potential participants will have with your team, and you want to ensure that it's clear from the first interaction that they can visualize themselves in your program through the person they're interacting with. There will not always be a possibility of matching every potential applicant's background, but ensuring that the outreach and recruitment team is not demographically homogenous can demonstrate commitment to the 6 core equity values and make potential participants more comfortable in the process. So I think some people mentioned partnering with CBOs as a good way to recruit, and Chapter 3 touches on different kinds of partnerships, including those with CBOs. And so reaching out to those CBO partners to ask, hey, do you have any participants who are looking to increase their skills to get jobs? Any job seekers looking to increase their skills? Very good way of recruiting participants. Attending career fairs might give you an idea of participants who are looking to up their skills. Open house events, so you could host an open house at your organization and invite the community in just to tell them about the work that you do, and that might get them thinking about maybe they're looking for new skills, or they know somebody who's looking to get a job and might benefit from some skills training. Do some public service announcements like print ads in the newspaper or local magazines, or press releases. And again, just want to mention that if you do want to do a press release, that's another item that should be reviewed by the CEJA team. We'll send that over to our comms office for review. So make sure to give plenty of time on press releases. All kinds of social media interaction is definitely in this day and age a good way to do outreach and recruitment. We saw word of mouth mentioned past participants are a great way to generate the next cohort of recruitment. And then street outreach. Don't want to forget about that kind of outreach as well. Just going out and talking to people, right? Going into the equity investment eligible communities and literally meeting folks where they are. And so utilizing any and all of these kinds of outreach and recruitment methods are a good way to find participants for your program. Next slide, please. How does your team incorporate equity into your outreach materials and methods? So another opportunity to type in the chat or come off mute. The ways that you incorporate equity into your outreach. See, partnering with CBOs that target those specific populations for employment as referrals. Yep, that's a good one. Uh-huh.
I was I was gonna type it out, but it was easier for me to come off of mute. The other thing that we also do is attend events that are hosted by. I mean, it's aligned with what Yesenia said. So attending events that are hosted by um, uh, organizations that specialize in those with those communities.
Yeah, okay, very good.
Yep.
Thank you for that one. What about oh, there we go. Having marketing materials in different languages and staff that speak that language. Yep, that's a good one. I was actually also going to mention marketing materials that have representation from the populations we're trying to recruit from. Another good one. Anybody else have any other thoughts before I move on? All right, no problem. Next slide, please. So the goal of the outreach tools and methods we just reviewed is to recruit potential participants and ultimately guide them through the application process and help them enroll in the program. This journey is composed of 4 steps that are represented in the reporting system by the statuses on the screen. Inquiry contact, pre-screen inquiry contact, applicant, and enrolled participant. And we'll review the last 2 steps in the next section of this orientation, but let's begin with the inquiry contact and the pre-screen inquiry contact. And please note that definitions for each of these statuses are in Chapter 4. Next slide. The goal of the outreach tools and methods we just reviewed is to recruit potential participants to apply and then enroll them in the program. The journey to enrollment begins when an individual shows interest in your respective FEJA or CEJA workforce program. Outreach and recruitment staff, ideally at the navigator, but could be at any of your programs, enter them into the reporting system as an inquiry contact, documenting their name and contact information so that outreach staff can follow up later. They then complete a pre-screen assessment where they become a pre-screen inquiry contact. If eligible and interested in continuing in the program, they'll complete an application during the applicant phase. And then finally, if all eligibility is met and the applicant wants to move forward, they'll become an enrolled participant. Enrollment will be covered later in this orientation, so let's first take a deeper look at the pre-screen inquiry contact phase. Next slide, please. Next, either during this initial contact or during a later follow-up, outreach and recruitment staff, again at either the navigator or workforce program, must complete a pre-screen assessment with the potential participant to determine eligibility for the program. This assessment contains 9 questions that help get a glimpse of eligibility. Once complete, the individual is now considered a pre-screen inquiry contact. Pre-screen assessments can be completed on paper, but results must be added to the CEJA reporting system within 24 hours. Answers to these questions can be documented electronically, directly into the reporting system, or on paper and then added to the system within 24 hours. Once questions are answered, the individual is now considered a pre-screen inquiry contact. Um, uh, bu- 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 bum. And the reporting system will produce a pre-screening result that will indicate if the person is eligible to participate in the program or if they should be referred to an alternate program. If the participant is eligible, the next step is to have them complete that application, and we'll review that in the next section. Next slide. All right. And we're going to take a quick break here after this slide, but before we do that, what questions do folks have so far about outreach and recruitment?
Hi, I have a question. The prior slide, you said the pre-screen assessment. Are you guys gonna send those questions to us?
Yeah, so that will be that is in the CEJA reporting system.
Okay,
And so we will, so that will be part of the CEDAR reporting system training. And I want to say, let me see, is that real quick? I'm looking it up here, folks. But anybody on the CEJA team, is that in the partner guide too? I'm pulling that up here real quick. It may be in there as well. But either way, yes, we will go over those with you, and you'll be able to see those in the CEDAR reporting system. And they are um, in the partner guide. And I will post a link to those right now.
okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, they are in chapter 5. There are PDFs of all of this information on Illinois WorkNet under the partner section. So you can access service needs assessments, completing applications, completing intake, all of that information. And I put that link in the chat for you.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thanks, Sarah. What else? Any other questions on outreach and recruitment? Alrighty. Next slide. Let's take a quick 5-minute, maybe one more click. Okay, so okay, hold on one second. So before we take that break, did get one more question, and this does seem like a pretty important one. So either the navigator or the hub can complete these steps. And the answer is yes. We definitely want to encourage as tight of coordination as we can promote between the navigator and the hub. But part of that means that the hub and navigator should collaborate, coordinate on, okay, who's doing what as part of this process, right? And each local area is going to have their own kind of procedures for this. So some things that you should be thinking about when you're kind of developing those procedures for the outreach and recruitment and the intake. So we want the two organizations to talk about, when should we be recruiting, right? The workforce training program is going to have their schedule of training. And so at the very least, the two organizations should get together and figure out, well, when is our recruitment season, right? We want to make sure we've got recruits in the system X number of days or weeks before classes start. And so that means that we've got to go find people during this time to make sure that we've got those recruits in an appropriate time frame. Then you're going to definitely want to talk about where you're going to recruit. Is the navigator doing all of that, or is the hub doing some of that, right? And so understanding that we've got like community colleges that are grantees, and they've already got a presence in the community. They may have billboards around the community. They may be running ads in the community saying, "Hey, come to the college and take some training programs," right? And so there's already going to be some sort of recruitment already going on in some of those places. So how does the navigator fit in there? Is it focusing on specific neighborhoods that have large pockets of our eligible populations? What does that look like? Then you want to, of course, think about, okay, as we go out and recruit folks, who's going to make that next contact with them, right? Is the navigator finding all the people, doing a couple of the steps in the intake process, and then saying, okay, hubs, it's up to you now? Or is the navigator carrying them through that entire process, through the career and service needs assessment and application before they do that handoff with the hub program, the training program? Whenever that training handoff occurs, who is the next person to reach out to them, right? So how, when we make that warm handoff, how do we know when the training program is going to pick up that communication and say, hey, your classes start in 2 weeks? Or maybe that's the navigator that's sending out that communication. Hey, we've got your application in. The next step, the hub will let you know if you've been accepted into the program, and then they'll reach out to you with timing for the next steps. So long answer, but to kind of summarize that, the navigator or the hub can complete any of these steps. And it's going to be up to each local partnership to figure out what makes sense for that partnership in terms of who should do what. So maybe I'll pause there again for additional questions before we go off to break. Does that make sense to folks? Any follow-ups to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just had another question.
Sure.
So in the next part of the training, you said, because I had downloaded the pre-screener questions with the career needs and the needs, you said we're gonna kind of go over who's gonna be, is the navigator gonna be doing that or the recruitment? That's something we're gonna be talking about in the next, after the break.
I don't know if I don't think necessarily like drilling into who should do each one,
Okay,
but definitely how those work. And I mean, and just to summarize too, like ideally we want the navigator to
the two,
be doing the
okay.
primary recruitment and outreach and intake, right? But
Mhm.
just knowing that each local area may have different circumstances that may require those responsibilities to kind of shift just depending on those local circumstances.
Okay, I just want to know what Gyro is responsible for putting in the system. So just want to be compliant. That's all.
Yep, yep, yep.
Thank you.
Mhm. Cool. All right. So yeah, let's take a 5-minute break. My clock says 9:47, so let's be back at 9:52.
Okay, everybody, it is 9:52, so we are going to start up again. I hope everybody has joined us. So if we could go to the next slide. In this next section, we are going to be talking about the program application and intake. And again, my name is Sarah Graham. I am the CEJA grant manager for the Central and Southern regions. I am also the FEJA multicultural grant manager, and I also work with returning residents. Next slide, please. By the end of this section, you are going to be able to leverage standardized tools and templates to complete the application and intake process. You're going to be able to learn how to comply with the application and intake requirements in the CEJA reporting system. You're going to be able to complete tasks related to the intake process, including the service needs assessment. And you're going to be able to integrate equity values into your program's application and intake processes. If you haven't yet, but would like to follow along, you can access Chapter 5 of the Workforce Hub's Grantee Manual by clicking the link in the chat, which I had already posted, but I will post again. And you should see that now. Okay, next slide, please. The second step in the workforce program's life cycle is application and intake. In the last section, potential participants interacted with outreach and recruitment staff or energy transition navigator program staff and completed their pre-screen assessments. In this stage of the life cycle, potential participants will complete the application, gain their enrollment decision, complete an initial career assessment, and complete the intake needs assessment. Next slide, please. Like outreach and recruitment, FEJA and CEJA workforce programs and energy transition navigators will both be providing application and intake services. Workforce hubs, solar pipeline, multicultural jobs, and ET navigator programs will lead applicants through the same application and intake process. The navigators are expected to provide referrals to the other programs once they have deemed a participant is eligible. Next slide, please. In the CEJA reporting system, the status of the potential applicant will only move from pre-screen inquiry contact to applicant when an application has been entered. This is a requirement. Applicants must be entered electronically into the CEJA reporting system. A paper copy can be used initially as long as the information is entered into the system within 24 hours. Despite this, the application and intake process actually begins before the application is started and ends once all intake assessments have been completed. The application process begins with the pre-screen assessment, which we discussed in the last section, and then it moves into the application, initial career assessment, and finally the service needs assessment. And as a reminder, the navigators can assist with applications and assessments. Next slide, please. Due to the time commitment required to move through the application process, some potential participants may need earlier assistance. Limited support services funding can be made available to grantees through their program budget with approval for short-term needs of applicants to reduce or eliminate barriers to application. Talk to your grant manager if you are unsure if these funds are already a part of your approved budget. Once these participants become enrolled in the Workforce Hub, those and other barrier issues can be addressed with barrier reduction funding. Next slide, please. The program application gathers information from the participant, such as contact information, but it also identifies any special considerations. The special considerations are not eligibility items, but rather provide the organization with an understanding of potential barriers or assistance that the individual may need in transitioning. Next slide, please. The career assessment asks about the following items: current employment status, including hourly wage, salary, employer name, start and end date, job title, job duties, and reason for leaving. Interest in construction and building trades, need for personal finance training, their math level, their ability to lift 25 to 50 pounds and or stand for long periods, resume, and job interview experience. The assessment is considered a baseline to help the grantee identify if the program is the correct program for the applicant based on their career goals and interests. If the applicant is accepted into the program, they will have a second career assessment completed, the pre-transition career assessment, which will reassess these items 3 or 4 weeks before completing the program. Next slide, please. The intake needs assessment assesses the needs of applicants and any barriers that may keep applicants from being successful in the program and may be reduced or eliminated with support from CEJA workforce programs. These services are called support services, and they address academic and non-academic barriers. The applicant then can opt in or opt out of each service offered or request a service that is not listed. This assessment is completed during intake, and participant needs may change throughout the program. As a result, a support services staff person should regularly reassess participant needs. If participant needs change, it must be recorded in the CEJA reporting system. Next slide, please. The service needs assessment will address all of the needs listed on the screen. The target populations of the FEJA and CEJA workforce programs have historically been under-resourced, and many may lack a support system that has the ability or resources to help them with unanticipated costs or circumstances. Due to these unexpected costs or circumstances, participants may find themselves in a position where they think their only option is to stop programming. They may reach the end of the program and find that they cannot afford the basics needed to make a successful transition, such as tools, equipment, or required uniforms. To address these barriers, grantees can provide access to the support services listed on the screen, which are all available to participants upon enrollment. As we noted earlier, a selection of these are also available to applicants to remove barriers to entry. Some of these services may be provided in-house, while others may be available through external partnerships. It is especially important that these services are offered in an equitable way, with care and attention paid to potential participant issues, sensitivities, and needs. We will address building rapport with participants later in our presentation. There will also be more information provided on each of these services in Chapter 6, Barrier Reduction Services, and in Orientation Session 3. Now, in the chat, can you please let us know what questions you have about the application, the initial career assessment, or any intake needs assessment questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any at this time. So I am going to turn the presentation over to Michelle Cerruti.
Hi, everyone. I'm just hopping on to say hi, and then I'm going to have my camera off while I present. But I'm the CEJA Regional Administrator, covering the Southern region, as well as the four returning residents programs. And I'm just going to turn my video off. And we're going to talk about enrollment decisions. So once a participant has completed their application, their initial career assessment, and intake needs assessment, the grantee must make an enrollment decision. And when I say grantee, navigators do not make enrollment decisions. So it would be the hub or the CEJA grantee that makes the enrollment decision. It's critical to remember that enrollment decisions must be made based on participant eligibility and their career goals alone. We will address the issue of participant skimming as well later in this presentation. There are two outcomes for enrollment, either acceptance or denial, and there are enrollment template letters available for your use through the Workforce Hub's partner guide. So let's look at the requirements for acceptance and denial of an application. Next slide, please. When an applicant is accepted to the program, the acceptance letter must clearly outline that a potential participant has been accepted. It must also include vital program information, such as the class schedule, any orientation specific dates and times, any documentation they must bring to their orientation, and any copy and explanation of the Workforce Hub's program commitment agreement. Next slide, please. So the Workforce Hub's program commitment agreement outlines the participants' rights, obligations, and training conditions. So this form also acts as a Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, or FERPA waiver, which means the participant is providing the grantee and the Workforce Hubs access to the data that will be entered in the CEJA reporting system. And without this waiver, participants cannot participate in the program. This is a standardized and required form available on the Workforce Hub's partner guide. This is included with the acceptance letter, so participants can sign and bring this with them for orientation. If a participant is not able to complete If they're not able to complete this prior to attending orientation, grantees should ensure there are copies available during orientation for them to sign. And again, a participant cannot begin instruction without signing and submitting this form. Next slide, please. The alternate outcome for enrollment decisions is denial. And this may happen because the participant is not eligible or because they identified that their career goals did not align with the program. In this case, they should be provided with a letter that clearly outlines the enrollment decisions and provides referrals for programs or services that will help that participant address eligibility issues so they can return to the Workforce Hubs program later or to programs that better align with their career goals. Next slide, please. Depending on the situation, the CEJA reporting system provides several denial status options. Referred to non-CEJA provider, not enrolled, declined to participate. Use this status for inquiry contacts who do not wish to participate in the CEJA Workforce Hubs program, but express interest in other workforce programs. Not enrolled, ineligible. Use this status for inquiry contacts who move on to pre-screening but are deemed ineligible based on the results. These contacts can be referred to other non-CEJA programs, such as programs in the community college or the American Job Centers, which is your local OWIA, for an example. Hub program at capacity. Use this status for inquiry contacts who are eligible based on the pre-screening results, but who cannot enroll in their area workforce hub because the program is at capacity. They could be referred to other nearby CEJA or non-CEJA programs if available as well. Next slide, please. After an enrollment decision has been made, it's just about time to move the individual from applicant status to enrolled participant. Next slide, please. So to be considered as an enrolled participant, the individual will need to have been accepted to the program, meaning they met all the eligibility requirements and completed all application intake requirements, signed the Workforce Hub's program commitment agreement, and attended instructions. Only then can they be updated in the CEJA reporting system from applicant to enrolled participant. Enrolling into a training service in the CEJA reporting system, actually enrolling into a service in the CEJA reporting system triggers enrollment. Next slide, please. What happens if a participant does not attend instruction, but they were accepted to the program? In this case, they would be considered a withdrawal. If a participant does not attend instruction on the first day, the grantee must continue to attempt contact over a 3-week period. If the individual is not responsive or responds they are no longer interested, then they will be removed from applicant to withdraw in the CEJA reporting system. And it's important to remember that even if someone is not responsive or states they are not interested in the program at this time, that does not disqualify them for participating in the future. And again, in our next session, you'll see how this works in this system when you have this CEJA reporting system training. Next slide, please. Participant skimming. So participant skimming is when a program only accepts applicants who are deemed more likely to succeed. And at times that could mean intentionally or unintentionally selecting candidates who have lower barrier reduction service needs. In the CEJA workforce programs, a participant's needs cannot disqualify them from the program. Grantees must make enrollment decisions based solely on eligibility criteria and the participant's career goals. An applicant's potential service needs should not be considered unless those needs make them ineligible for the program. Next slide, please. So Energy Transition Navigator coordination. So coordination between programs is essential, and Energy Transition Navigators are the front line for outreach and engagement within the CEJA ecosystem. So this can present some process overlap, so it's important to prioritize clear communication. Energy Transition Navigators will assist in outreach, recruitment, application, and intake for FEJA and CEJA workforce programs. Once applications have been completed by the career assessment and the service needs assessment, Energy Transition Navigators must alert the corresponding program grantee of pending applications. The CEJA Workforce Hub's staff, for instance, will review the applicant's information, make any enrollment decisions. The CEJA Workforce Hub staff will maintain contact with the Energy Transition Navigator staff and the applicant during the process to provide timeline updates. So it's the responsibility of the CEJA Workforce Hub's grantee to provide acceptance and denial letters to applicants and to communicate those decisions to the CEJA Transition Navigator staff. Those who were accepted to the program will fully transition into the CEJA Workforce Hub for instruction. Energy Transition Navigator staff will then no longer be required to maintain communication as the participant would be officially working with the CEJA Workforce Hub. Denied applicants will be referred back to Energy Transition Navigators, which will then provide resources about potential services and more suitable programs with other partners. Next slide, please. So what questions do you have about enrollment decisions or requirements? So please just post those in the chat or come off mute and we can discuss. And I'm trying to go through here. Let's see. Okay. I'm not seeing
Yes,
any.
I have a question.
Yes.
Yeah, so for the CEJA program, not the CEJA, but the FEJA. So, if you're FEJA grantee, then uh, is the expectation of working with navigators the same or similar to the one that's CEJA? Um, and the second part of the question is that FEJA was predecessor to CEJA. So, how how many as going in the future, uh, how is the funding going to be look like for FEJA versus CEJA?
Okay. So I do believe it's the same process, working with the navigators, but if Sarah or Connor, who are the FEJA grant managers, want to make any comment about that, please do.
Sure. The FEJA grantees are going to work with energy transition navigators to complete community education, outreach, and recruitment, just as CEJA grantees would. That's all supposed to be considered when you guys are going through that enrollment with prospective individuals. You're just going to coordinate with each other as well as any other individuals that are helping through the recruitment process. Does that answer your question, Amit?
Yeah. So are we considered a hub then, or not a hub?
No,
Or
you're considered a FEJA grantee.
okay, so so the second part of the question was this: is how is the funding for FEJA, because FEJA was a predecessor. I mean, the funding came for that first, then CEJA. So, how is that going to look like in the future? I understand
Absolutely.
what's that?
Yeah, you're referring to specifically your FEJA grant. I know you're a
Yeah, it's
couple different grants.
FEJA grant, but and I know we are on a 2-year cycle, but as far as go in the future, I mean, I'm just wondering, is the funding going to be merged for FEJA and CEJA eventually, or is that going to be still separate? And
I
just
can
one.
take that, Sarah. It's Diana. Amit, right now, to my knowledge, there is no legislative requirement where CEJA funding and FEJA funding will be merged. Right now, the two funding sources remain separate. And so until that changes legislatively, that will be the continued practice going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Okay. I don't see any other questions. Thank you, Diana and Sarah. So let's move to the next slide. So let's talk about building rapport. Building rapport with new or potential participants is essential to building a professional relationship based on trust. When participants have a trusting relationship built on mutual understanding and connection, they can better engage in instruction, support services, and a career transition. It's also a key feature of building a culture rooted in the 6 core values. Building rapport can begin during outreach and recruitment, but it is critical during the application and intake process. So while we are discussing rapport building in this section as it relates to the application and intake, keep in mind that this is crucial at all stages, and it's not something that is achieved one time, then remains steady forever. It's an ongoing, intentional interaction. It's also important to remember that for some participants, your teams will be meeting them later in the process. So, for example, if you're getting them after they've been referred by your ET Navigator partner. So, these individuals will need to establish a new relationship with your staff. So, building rapport is key to creating a welcoming, inclusive environment where people feel they belong. Next slide, please. So, tell us a little bit about how your team builds rapport with potential participants now, or what your plans are. Again, please post in the chat or you can come off mute. Anybody have any thoughts on what are some good ideas to build rapport? So we have I see in the chat intentional icebreaker activities. That's good. Anybody else have any great ideas for the group? Okay. Maybe also review their application with them just to make sure nothing's changed is always a good thing. I see when comfortable, we share our whys, just like we hear their why as to why they are in the program. That's great. And creating a safe space. That's awesome too. That's really good. Okay, great. So let's go to the next slide. So if any of these were stated in the chat already, um, we can skip them, but I don't think they were. So let's just talk about some of these ideas for building rapport with participants. So remembering names. This may seem like a small act, but this can be a significant gesture for many. Remembering participants' names can reinforce a sense of belonging. Be prepared for interactions. Not adequately preparing for instruction or participant meetings may make the participants feel that interacting with them is not a priority. So being on time, greeting participants, and having necessary resources available, and even following up after meetings can really strengthen grantee staff connections with participants. Find common experiences or opinions. So enrolling in a program like a workforce hub will be new for many participants, and finding common connections with participants further promotes positive connection. So I know someone said talking about their whys, finding common experiences or opinions to help root the relationship and provide a shared connection. It's also helpful to foster relationships between participants and alums. Uh, Perhaps students are from the same neighborhood or school. They might cheer for the same sports team. These connections do not have to be deeply rooted, revealing them fosters belonging. Also, active listening, being fully present in conversations. This means more than being physically present. Building rapport also requires staff to be mentally and emotionally present as well. So some ways to do this during a conversation are to be sure you make eye contact with a participant and also ask follow-up questions. And then be aware of body language. Nonverbal communication is equally, if not more, important than verbal communication. However, at times it can be misleading, which can cause a rupture in a staff participant relationship. So it's important for grantee staff to be mindful of the messages being sent by hand movements, facial expressions, vocal tone, and volume, and uh, their distance from participants. So, for example, a staff member who's very passionate might move closer to a participant, move their hands more, increase their vocal volume. While their intention may be to communicate excitement, but it might come across and be interpreted as aggression. Next slide, please. So, what questions do you have about building rapport with applicants and participants? Or maybe just even some comments about how you build rapport. Oh, I see another one. I also think asking pronouns and a preferred name is good. Yeah, that is a really good one. Okay, no other questions about rapport? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So now I just want to remind everybody about the upcoming orientation sessions. Again, this presentation's recorded. It will be in the partner guide, so you can refer back to it. Make sure you have all these dates on your calendar. You should have, by registering one time, you should have been registered for all of these. And next slide, please. Last but not least, we just want to thank you for participating. Our contact information is all listed, so please be sure and contact the regional administrator overseeing your programs or the grant managers overseeing your FEJA programs if you have any questions. And any comment or questions before we end? Okay. Okay, I don't see any. So again, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, everybody.